Yes, I'm going live now. Uh, I think it's live now on Facebook as well as on YouTube. We're just gonna give it a bit more time so that abantu bakwazi ungena, and then we can take it from there.
Okay.
Yeah, hey, it's hot, man. It's so hot.
Yo,
I've tried to move around to find indawo engathi noko ine inokuphola nyana apha endlini.
ipholile.
Yeah. Kunzima
Yeah,
nofaka
namaphapha but
nezifeni ezifakwayo because kaloku akho mbane.
akombani mfundini kunzima. And we're hoping
Hey,
it's not going to affect us kule 1 hour sinayo.
No. Okay. Let's. I'm just trying to see ubangaba is it showing live on Facebook or what's happening there.
Okay.
Yes, we're live. Yes, we're live on Facebook as well as on YouTube. Let me start off by just welcoming everyone who has joined us today on this hot day in Gauteng. I understand even in Cape Town and other parts of the country is as hot. But we're also having a hot discussion topic today. And so I'm looking forward to input from as many of you as possible. I'd like to welcome all our viewers, those that are viewing live or will be viewing later on. Maybe people are traveling, others are maybe doing all sorts of things. Some people come back to these videos and watch, and these Facebook pages to watch. And so we appreciate that, and we'd like to encourage all of you to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, which is called Moments of Insight and Growth. This channel is intended to just inform, transform, and basically create some sort of insight so that people can know that there are new ways of looking at old things, and there's nothing that we cannot discuss. And so today we're going to be discussing a very, very interesting topic. But before we do that, I'd like to play a short clip for everybody who's watching. I'm just going to play a short clip. There you go. Iyavakala Jwarha?
Action again.
Good. Actually, oh my gosh.
Chapter 5 in the book, page 121. Mr. Kulati, you have cancer. It was in November 2011 where we had our dark cloud when the doctor announced in our family. But what's so amazing is that through all the journey, God saw that I was not ready for whatever outcomes I was expecting because of his illness.
I feel like you can't prepare for sentimental things. While he was writing this book and before, there's a lot of things I've learned from Utata and Umama, which have channeled a road for me and channeled the way of me becoming a man, because I look up to them and they have taught me so many lessons in my life, and now this book is motivating me to do more in my life. We're also part of this book. We're in this book. We're part of you forever. We can't change that. And yes, we love you, Dad.
And he told me every time he'd listen to that song, "You'll Never Walk Alone," he felt peace and understanding, and it would calm him down, and he'd feel hope that he would win this battle of cancer. So as he was telling me the story, I don't know how, but it really touched my heart because I love the song, and I felt like maybe Lengomale, it made him heal. So I started to cry. And we were sitting in the car. I remember he was sitting in the driver's and I was sitting in the learner's seat. And he noticed that I was crying, so then he hugged me and we cried together. I don't know if kumbula, but yes, that happened. So we cried together, and ever since that day, I've never forgotten that day. It always stays into my heart, thinking that I have that kind of relationship with my dad to sit down and cry with him.
Here.
All right. We're not going to play all of it. Today it's not about the book, but I thought let's just say and share with everyone who wants the book. It is available. There, we've got some copies down in Cape Town and in Port Elizabeth and in Johannesburg. So people who want the book, feel free to just reach out and then we can make it happen. But today we're having a very, very interesting discussion. Workplace transformation in South Africa, and I have an old friend of mine, Jwarha Sabelo, Hlanganisa. Jwarha, welcome, Shoba.
Again, thank you, Mhlekazibam. Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for inviting us to your platform. I must, before we even start with the program, video. My daughter told me that she wants to get your book. Apparently, you were the MC in Gauteng last week, where Ebeng, and she said to me, "Dada, just tell Tata Kulati that thanks to him, I want to get a copy of that book." So my daughter, she said, "Dada, buy me that book."
Thank you so much to her. And I will sign it and send it down. So thank you so much to her. Appreciate that. They look stunning, by the way. They were really, the wedding was just great. Thanks so much to her. All right. And anyone else who is listening to us now, thank you so much for listening and watching. And I know some people have told me that they will be driving, but they will be having their cell phones with them to watch. This topic that we're talking about, Mazaleni, is a very, very important yet painful discussion in South Africa, especially as we're going to delve deeper into it when we're talking about the transformation of the workplace in South Africa. We come from a dark history, a very painful history where the majority of South Africans were excluded in the workplaces. They were put to the lowest of the pile. And there were a number of legislative interventions that were put in place to try and help us to address that. We have to assess whether or not those legislative tools are working. But before we do that, I'd like just to introduce you today. The person I'm with here today is a transformation specialist, human resources manager, a man who has 20 years experience in the public sector. And indeed, also at some point you were in the private sector, Mazaleni, and a leader in a church, a preacher, a musician, a well-rounded man. And today we're going to be talking about just one aspect of his broad experience, which is around the issues of transformation in our country. And I'm so privileged and honored to have you on this program, my brother. Thank you so much again for coming.
Thank you so much, Kageni, once again for inviting us. We feel so humbled. We hope we will continue contributing to the development and the transformation of the country at large.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now, let's get to know a little bit more about you. I know that you were born at Ginsberg. You have an affinity with Steve Biko. And tell us a bit about how your upbringing, where you were born, where you went to school, and how you landed up where you are now in Cape Town.
All right. It's a very long story, Gageni, and one has even been considering penning that history down. I'm still trying to get the courage.
Please do that.
Born in Ginsberg, as you say, and it's very difficult to mention Ginsberg without mentioning Steve Bantu Biko, because most of us were born and exposed to values the Black consciousness movement. And so ndizalwa ngutata ongasekhoyo uMjwarha Jacob Nazibo Hlanganisa, nomama uMandungwana ongasekhoyo ngenxa yeCovid uMandungwana uNomvula Grisel Hlanganisa. I'm from the family of we were 6, by the way. My younger brother died early on. Okay. And so I ended up by default being the last born. Okay.
Yeah.
and look again, we were brought up to family that by God's grace managed. Zalelo living in a 2-room, you could see it. It looks like a 1-room house. There was a kitchen and there was a bedroom for my mom and dad. But the kitchen was divided into the kitchen, the dining room, the bedroom. My mom and dad had to buy a double bunk for my sisters to sleep with their children. So at some stage, we were 5 of us, abantwana, and then 7 ngomama no tata. And then my sisters also gave birth to very young children. And so at some stage, we were about 8 of us living in a 2-roomed house.
In this one big small place.
One very, very small place. But I can tell you, again, there was love in that house. Though the house was small, but the hearts of the parents were big when it comes to love, to the values of Ubuntu. And so we were brought up with that understanding that do not allow your background to impede you into your growth and development. Unfortunately, my father didn't continue with his education. However, he was amongst the workers. He joined politics, and unfortunately, again, because of his political activity, from time to time he was unemployed. Because he would be hired by this company, agxothwe, aqeshwe eBhandi, agxothwe, aqeshwe eKing Turning, agxothwe, aqeshwe. One time my father was employed, by the way, by Eskom. Eskom in those days, again, in the 70s, 80s, was one of the best companies.
Yes.
So my father was employed by Eskom, and he worked there only for 1 week. And when he got back to work on Monday, then he was called and told by management that, unfortunately, the system came and we were told to dismiss you immediately. And so that's the great background that I come from. In the process, my father, was more of a politician in sport, though an Adventist. My mother was not an Adventist by birth. Waza kuba eziswe ngutata in the Adventist family. But my father was not an Adventist. Okay, ebengaye enkonzweni more often.
Okay.
And the times I remember in my memory, there are only 2 times I remember going to church with my father as the entire family. Only 2 times. In those days, in church, we would sit as families. Family Kamtini, family Jack, family Sitela, and many other family those days. And so I remember only 2 instances where we were there with my father and mother and my siblings. So my father was more politically involved with sport, and so I am from that background. Without taking too much of your time, yes.
Okay, so tell us about your schooling history. You went to school where, and then up until you got to tertiary. Briefly.
Okay. eGinsberg, izikolo zethu eGinsberg ndifunde, by the way, Seventh-day Adventist. My grade 1, is it engu-A ngoko ne? My grade 1. Ndifunde Seventh-day Adventist Church. Singekabikho isikolo phaa eGinsberg. Sasenkonzweni. That small church, it had 4 classes, by the way. Ibe no sub A phaa ngasemnyango, ibe no B, ibe no A yomkhulu, abe khona u1, abe khona u2 phaa enkonzweni. Ibijika ngovulo ibe sisikolo elagumbi lincinci, sifundiswe ngumemasulo sonke. Lo gama, while she is teaching standard 1 or standard 2, those of us who are in sub A are listening and are also grasping the information. You see, the system thought it was marginalizing us, but when we got to sub B, standard 1, we already had this information because Umem was teaching in front of us. So I moved to Brown, moved to Charles Morgan Higher Primary. Then I went to Forbes Grant Senior Secondary School. Okay. We were together, from standard 8, which is grade 10 these days. I think we passed together our matric, and then we were unemployed for some time, me and him. And it was in that period of our unemployment that Usporo taught me and gave me the background of the church.
Wow.
You will not believe that again. And hence I will always respect Usporo. Usporo is the one who and the background of the church. Grounded me. And ndiyasifikela mna sandoguquka, and I was in sport and politics, and then ndaguquka through the ministry at River Jordan, nabo Keke, nabo Sporo, nabo Lunga. And so it was Sporo who then took me under his wings. In 1991, Utatu Gada gave me church manual to read, and then I read this church manual. And then Sporo was talking more about the policies, Ellen White, and many. So I ended up being grounded. And then in that way, we got closer to each other, because every day Sporo would come to my house because we were unemployed. We discuss, we talk about church issues. So I'm always grateful to him for what he did to me. And so from there we moved to Cape Town, 1992. Won't get into details. I moved to Cape Town. I got employed, and then I called him. I think he was here in your platform. I called him, told him, come here. If I can be employed in Cape Town, you too can also be employed. That's how Sporo ended up.
As a spirit of brotherhood.
And it was in that process where we then decided, the two of us, to further our studies. And then Sporo went to Siput, and then that was Pentech then. And then I went to Cape Tech to study human resources. While I was working for KPMG as a filing clerk, as a messenger at KPMG.
Wow. So you started all the way from the bottom. And I think that's a message there for young people to understand that the people that we see now in senior management and taking leadership positions, most often a lot started at the bottom of the barrel and they worked their way up. And I think that's very important, Jwarha. So now let's transition towards, after that background, let's transition towards the state of transformation in South Africa today. When I was looking at the at the report of the competition of the Commission of Employment Equity, realize that this is the 22nd report. These reports have been coming out every year. Now, it has a number of terms that are included in it. Let's talk about some of those terms. Things like workplace transformation, employment equity, designated groups. Can you just give us a few of those that you would like us to know so that it can be a bit of a context for our discussion here?
All right, thanks again, once again. If you allow me, just give a little bit of a background. As you have indicated, that we're coming from a very dark history as a country, and so there was a period in our country where there was what is otherwise known as the Job Reservation Act, wherein firstly blacks were not defined, were not included firstly in the definition of the word employee. Blacks did not have a right to be employees. They were only taken when there's a project, and so Job Reservation Act it was meant to protect the privileges of a privileged few. And so South Africa comes from that background where our parents could not stand in certain queues when they were looking for employment, where black people were not allowed to take certain professional streams, where women and people with disabilities were seriously marginalized. And so, as you indicated, again, that's the background that we're coming from as a country. And hence, if you look very dark background, Kajeni, but I want to focus here with employment, because generally we could not even go to certain beaches. I mean, Amalwan there for us to go and swim. We could not go because of that apartheid legislation. And so there was this reservation of jobs. And now fast forward to 1994, this democracy, the miracle. And one of the things that the country did and the leaders was to recognize the injustices of the past. And in the preamble within our constitution, it is stated that we must heal the injustices. We recognize the injustices of the past, and we must heal the divisions of the past. That is now the preamble within our constitution. Then you move again to chapter 2 of the Constitution. It then talks about the Bill of Rights, which is a cornerstone of democracy, where the rights of all people are enshrined. It affirms democratic values of human dignity, equality, and freedom. It also states that everyone is equal before the law. And then, this is the last part, it then says, the state may not unfairly discriminate directly or indirectly against anyone. Then comes in the Employment Equity Act in 1998. Employment Equity Act 55 of 1998, which has got a purpose, one, to achieve equity in the workplace, to promote equal opportunity and fair treatment in employment, to eliminate any unfair discrimination, to implement affirmative action measures, and to ensure there is fair and equitable representation of all races, gender, and people with disabilities in all occupational levels. So that's how we then got into the Employment Equity Act. And the report that you are talking about, you are correct, it is the 22nd report. But let us quickly define Kajeni as terms without taking much of your time. If we look at designated groups,
I think the background that you gave is very, very important as a context so that we can understand these terms better. We can understand also their meaning and their intention behind these pieces of legislation. So thank you for that background. Carry on.
Thank you again. Then you spoke about designated groups. Designated groups it's black people, blacks. It is women and people with disabilities.
Yeah.
There's a subject on its own when it comes to dealing with people with disabilities. Maybe it will need another discussion. Then when it talks about blacks, black is a generic term again that means Africans, colors, and Indians. Sometimes people, when they say blacks, black people, they only refer to Africans. But according to legislation, blacks is Africans, colors, and Indians. Okay.
Okay.
And then it talks about designated employer. The designated employer, it is an employer that is employing 50 or more employees.
Okay.
Okay. And then you spoke about EAP, economically active population. Economically active population looks at those who are employed or those who are self-employed and those who are unemployed, but excluding the school children, those at preschool, the students, as well as the pensioners. So when we talk about the economically active population, we exclude the pensioners, we exclude the students, as well as those in the preschool. So those are the terms that I want us to also understand. People with disabilities. People with disabilities, it is those who have equal definition in the Employment Equity Act. It is those who have a long-term or recurring physical or mental impairment, which substantially limits their process or prospects of entry or development and even advancement in employment. So that's the definition of people with disabilities.
Okay. I thought let's define the basics so that we all move in the same direction, because people sometimes we just make comments, especially those of us who are not in this space, in the HR space, and it makes it very, very important. Now, I was in preparation for this discussion. I read an article from the Global Business Editor, which was commenting on this report that we're now talking about. And I want to quote a little bit and then ask some questions from there.
Okay.
I quote, it says, with the majority of employment equity reports being submitted by the private sector, it was noted that the white population group still dominates the top tiers of management in this sector, meaning in the private sector, while the African population group dominates the top 3 levels of management in the public sector. Given the trend in the private sector, the point was raised as to whether or not foreign conglomerates, when they bring their own top-tier management to set up operations, transfer their skills to South Africans. Now, what explains this picture that we are seeing here, where 30 years or 28 years after democracy, in fact, 22 years after, if I heard you correctly, from 1998, that we're still having this lack of real transformation at those levels in the private sector?
It's a serious challenge again.
Yeah.
By the way, let me clarify this. I am not speaking on behalf of my employer. I think I need to declare that I'm speaking from my personal capacity. All right.
Yes.
The problem or the challenge here again, firstly, we must understand when you say the targets, what is the target? What is the actual? Okay. And you spoke about the economically active population.
Yeah.
And so the Commission for Employment Equity then takes the figures where economically active population are concerned, and then looks at it and say, nationally, the target for Africans, there's a target for Africans, there's a target for colors, there's a target for Indians, there's a target for whites, there's a target for women, there's a target for males, and there's a target for people with disabilities as well,
yes.
which is 2%. And so nationally, the target for the economically active population for the Africans, it is 79%. This is now, keep that in mind. The target for Africans, national target is 79%.
Does that include, sorry, Jwarha, does that include both the public sector? Are you talking about the private sector?
Yes, that's both the public and private sector.
Okay, yes, okay.
Yes. So when you look at the report, it must reflect that 79% at all the levels. That's the target. Then for colors, it's around 9.1%. For Indians, it's about 2%, 2.7%. For whites, it is 8.8%. So when you look at the public sector, when you look at private sector, it must reflect these targets of 79% for Africans at top management, at senior management, at middle management. But unfortunately, that is not the case, especially with the private sector. And so the challenge, you ask yourself a question as to why after 20, Umemi normally teases me with my calculations, since 1998, after almost 24 years of Employment Equity Act, why are we failing to achieve these targets, especially within the private sector?
Yeah.
The challenge, again, is that one, and I'm saying it could be the lack of commitment to transformation by top management. That's point number one. Lack of the resistance of transformation, because some employers even budget, set aside the money for when they are being fined by the Department of Labor. And so we are not going to worry about transformation. We're not going to worry about employment. We'll just pay the fine. Okay? And so others, they are doing window dressing just to appoint one woman, one African, one colored, and put them in positions without authority. And when you then delve deep down, then you discover that these employers are not actually complying to employment equity. You will see in my concluding remarks, I've got a point that says, I cannot be happy, Gajeni. You cannot be happy being the only black person in the boardroom. You cannot be. And so some companies, especially in the private sector, for them to be able to get business from government, they just throw in one or two people so that they are able to be seen to be complying. But when you do the analysis of their workplace, you then discover the policies, the environment, even there is no consultation. So this is basically what is taking place, unfortunately, with the with the workplace in the private sector. Our government, I must say, both national, provincial, and local, they are doing quite well where representation, I'm saying representation is concerned. But because you don't want to make transformation and only a numbers game.
There
is representation, there is the environment, there is the processes, the procedures, and the policies, and therefore there is the mindset of the employees that has to change. So some of the top dogs, the owners, the top management have not transformed their mindset. And hence today, 28 years after democracy, we're still grappling with the issue of true and genuine transformation in the private sector.
Wow. Man, I just want to test your thinking on this matter. There has been some argument to say that the quality of our education produces people that are not able to be absorbable to the private sector, especially at certain critical skills levels. So, in other words, you've got people, yes, that are qualified, but they're either qualified in degrees or subjects that are not necessarily needed by the economy, or the quality of their output is not great. What do I have thoughts on that, on the quality of education and its outcomes?
Firstly, I don't subscribe fully to the fact that you don't have blacks and women and people with disabilities with requisite skills.
Okay.
I don't subscribe. I don't subscribe to that. There are highly qualified blacks, women, and people with disabilities in the country. So it depends to where do we look for them. Secondly, what environment are they coming into? We have a revolving door. You know, you see the revolving door again. They come in, but because the environment is not conducive, they also leave.
Yeah.
That's the revolving door. And so again, I have sat in interviews, and I continue to sitting in interviews where I see blacks highly qualified. We've got chief financial officers, black. We've got engineers. We have accountants. We have black people highly skilled. So it's not completely correct to say they are not there.
Okay.
Some of those people come from a poor kind of education system.
Yeah.
But they managed to make it through. When all the odds were against them, stacked against them, but they managed to make through. I mean, we've got people like yourself, we've got people like, I don't want to mention names here, that can perform the same job that is performed by white males in private sector, job management positions. So it's not completely correct. However, our education has also to contribute in the transformation and development within the country. Our education system. I am not a specialist where that is concerned. But it needs a great transformation to ensure that, because we come from a past that we were not allowed, we were only allowed to be teachers, abonesi, so it means the system now has to, abefundis. The system in South Africa has to be conducive in creating a platform where black people are now able to get all these skills from primary up until they complete their matric and until they get to tertiary level. So the education system has to change as well. Lastly, Tina is about, let us also move away from that issue of undermining someone who is not necessarily a graduate through the formal education system. You do have your vocational way of education. Those who may not be accountants and engineers, but you do have artisans. We do have plumbers. Not all of us are going to be accountants, engineers, asset managers.
Yes.
No, not all of us are going to be academic, but there are skills like the builders. You look at from a buyer, Abaki from the local community, the builders, there's a skill. You look at the plumber, you look at the artisans. So those are the things that we need to also encourage, that when my child is not doing well at school the formal way, that does not make him any less of a human being, because they are not able to pass through grade 12 and graduate, get a national diploma, get a degree, get the honors. That does not make them any less of a human being. There is a skill that the child may have. So let us enhance that skill. So our government, through the SETAs, is doing exactly that, to ensure those who are not able to do the formal route there's a skill that is imparted to our people.
Wow. I think you've highlighted very important issues there. The issue of the environment in the workplace that is conducive. I write in the book, we were talking about I resigned from a place. I won't mention where, you may know. I resigned and I went to take a lower job. My wife was pregnant because I felt that my presence was tolerated but not celebrated. My presence, I mean, they like the output that I was giving out, but they were just tolerating. So you're right. There's that revolving door for people, and I think now let's come to the issue of.
Sorry, again, before you get there.
Yeah.
Before you get there, sorry.
Yeah. Fine.
Today we cry foul, or we cry wolf. We say there's a brain drain of blacks, and there's this term to say blacks, they are changing jobs. They are job hopping. It is not because blacks are job hopping. It is the environment that pushes black people out. And so there is no brain drain. Black people are there. Look for black people. You will find them. In all the skills, you will find them. All that you need to do, give black people a conducive environment. Give black people the authority. How can you be the executive director sitting in the board, but you don't have authority? You are sitting there. You are becoming a T-boy. Strategic decisions are made. When we ask you about that, you don't know. And so that's the environment that black people have to work in. And not long, blacks are leaving that environment, not because they are not wanting to work, but the environment is not conducive for them.
Sure. Now, talking about the environment, and we were talking earlier on about the fact that there are some companies that budget for to pay for the fines. So what legislative instruments are there, or are they working at all to enforce beyond just the fines? Do we have a problem with our legislation, or do we not have the enforcement capacity to ensure that these things are happening?
From a legislation point of view, Kakeni, the legislation is sufficient.
Yeah,
I think the legislation is quite sufficient. I think there is a duty from each employer that is expected. One, if you are an employer, you have a responsibility to firstly assign. This one is very difficult. You've got a duty to assign a senior manager to deal with employment equity.
Okay.
Then you can ask yourself a question: how many employers have assigned that responsibility to senior managers? Again, you are mainly in the private sector. I am in the public sector. But I can tell you, keep the list of all the organizations, and then you ask yourself a question: how many have assigned the responsibility where transformation is concerned? I will not mention the name. I once worked very long time ago, for a particular place, and I was an employment equity officer.
Yeah.
Can I tell you, I was not even part of management. Just outside. I was not part of management. I was there below, and I did not.
You're not part of
the
decision making.
No, you're not part of decision making. I don't have staff. I'm the only person that is responsible for employment equity in the staff complement of about 1,000 or 2,000. You ask yourself a question: is that employer serious about transformation? That employer is not serious about transformation. So the legislation then states it that it is the accounting officer that is responsible for transformation. All right.
Yeah.
Then the accounting officer, according to the legislation, can then delegate to a senior manager.
Yeah.
Then that's where it should end. But you know what it happens, Gajeni? The accounting officer delegates to a senior manager. The senior manager delegates it to another mid manager. The mid manager delegates it to a professional officer. The professional officer delegates it to an administrator.
So it becomes a tick
All
box.
these levels, it just becomes a compliance issue. And so, answering your question, our employers are not serious about that. They are not taking employment equity very serious. Okay. Two, employers have to consult with employees.
Yeah.
Have what you call your employment equity committee. Employers have to conduct the analysis of the workplace. You look at the policies. Where are these policies not creating a barrier? Are these policies not discriminative? Are these procedures and practices? So that's where you then conduct that analysis. From there, you then prepare an employment equity plan. Every employer must prepare an employment equity plan. The plan can be from 1 year. It cannot be short or less than a year. It cannot be longer than 5 years. So the employer has to prepare that plan. After having prepared that plan, the employer has to annually report to the Director General in the Department of Employment and Labor.
Yeah.
Annually report. Okay. So that you then say, this is my plan, this is what we have achieved.
Yeah.
You know what happens? They
Yeah.
don't budget. I mean, they don't report. They just wait for whatever fines, they pay those fines. This is another important issue. The employer again has to report on income differentials for each occupational level. Therefore, the fact that today we've got a gap between males and females,
Yeah.
it is because the employers are not employing women at senior top management positions. They are still grabbed just to achieve that 50-50. 28 years after democracy, employers are still finding it very difficult to achieve 50-50. In your boardroom, Kajen, whenever I get into a meeting, forgive me, I'm a transformation agent. When I get into a meeting in the boardroom, I look around who's sitting next to me.
Yeah.
And then I have a problem when I discover that it's only the boys' choir here. It gets worse when it's only a particular race only. It gets worse when you don't find your Indians, your Africans, your colors. It gets worse when you can't find. So we as Black people, we have to challenge these issues.
Yeah.
If you are a CEO, as you are a CEO, Gakeni, it is your duty as the CEO to ensure that there is transformation taking place in your workplace, in your company, wherever you are. Even if you are a CEO, you are just an administrator, it is your duty to ensure there is transformation. You must argue, you must push for transformation wherever we are given an opportunity.
Wow. This is very, very powerful, man, because sometimes people get into these positions and they're just happy that they are there themselves, occupying the senior position. I'm happy that I'm the only one who looks like me here, who,
Can't be.
and I think you've given a strong challenge in this regard. Now, the report I referred to, in fact, you've answered the question that one a friend, Uvuyiseka Masiza Geza, beyibuzile, where she says, please ask him why the racial and gender pay gap are still prevalent in 2022. So you've answered that question. Now, I just want us to touch on a little bit of something, because about a year or so, I spoke to the chair of the Commission on Employment Equity, Sister Bia. And
Yes.
in their report of that year, this matter was raised, and I'm going to raise it quickly, but and then it also was in this article I was reading from the Global Business Editor. It says that Africans still dominate the unskilled and semi-skilled labor market. All right, that's a low rung. What is of concern to the Commission is that foreign nationals make up 4.3% of the unskilled labor. In other words, these are skills that are not included in the critical skills list. Given South Africa's soaring unemployment rates, this sector of the economy could provide jobs to many. Thus, the employers are strongly encouraged to employ South African nationals over foreigners. In fact, the proposed Employment Services Amendment Bill will limit employment of foreign nationals. And this discussion we had with Zolani Smai recently. But there is a view that says, especially from people that represents migrant communities, that this is not true. So in other words, foreign nationals do not are not oversupplied in the market. So what's your take on this thing? Do you have a particular view on it?
All right, again, I think, remind me if I get off the track. I will answer this question in two ways. I will deal with the first point you started with, that of Africans at the lower levels. Then I will deal with the foreign nationals.
Yeah.
The perception being created when you've got your majority of Africans at the lower levels.
Yeah.
It is that blacks are good enough to occupy lower level positions. Blacks and women and people with disabilities are not good enough to occupy top management and senior management positions. Are we then not still dealing with that challenge that we are dealing with under apartheid of job reservation? That's the challenge that South Africans have to deal with. That's the question they have to answer. Are we saying blacks are not good enough to be at the top management? I usually make an example about the Irish coffee. Coffee, which is white at the top, brown in the middle, and then black at the bottom. Are we happy as South Africans to be still dealing with the issue of the Irish coffee, where a particular race group, and by the way, this is not anti-white.
Yes.
Transformation is not anti-white, but we are saying ensure there is fair and equitable representation at all or in all occupational levels. So we've got to end this white on top, Indians and colors in the middle, then Africans at the bottom. That has to come to an end. Our government at times is not doing its work correctly. The enforcement and the monitoring. The legislation is there, but we need to have ways where we monitor and enforce and not only fining, but ensuring that those who are not complying with the amendment is going to deal with that. They are heavily punished, and government will not give business to any employer that does not comply with the transformation of employment equity. That's part one. The second part of foreign nationals. This is not xenophobic. This is not xenophobic at all. You ask yourself a question, at the unskilled level, why do we have to take people from outside the country? Because there's no need of a critical skill. It's not a scarce skill. And we are not saying foreign nationals must not be employed. That's not what we're saying. But it's a serious concern that you get drivers, you get very low positions where you do not necessarily need a skill. But companies are employing foreign nationals. That adds into the fuel within the country, that of people having with xenophobic thoughts. And so the employers have to take this issue very seriously, that at that level, you don't need to go out. It's not a scarce skill, not a critical skill. just get someone who is able to do that. So we need to appeal to employers to say the country is grappling with a high unemployment rate. And so when you appoint people who are from other countries at that level, that is not justified. When you have young people who are unemployed in the country, a salary of 5,000 can be taking a responsibility of about 10 family members. That then will improve the economy of the country and that of the families as well.
Wow. That's very interesting points there, because after having a chat with Zolani Smai, I got a call from a friend of mine who had the experience of working in the Cape Town hospitality industry in hotels and restaurants. And when he describes the conditions of work there, where you're working for low wages, and you, in fact, I hope I'm not misrepresenting him, but he was saying that, the South African guys just cannot handle that level of disadvantage and that level of exploitation, because for them, they are from here, they can't stand. For example, you get something like R7.50 per hour, and then you still have to pay for your transport, you have to pay for your accommodation, and then, if you don't come and work over weekend, then that's where the bigger money comes in. Like South Africans want to go and have time with their families, they want to go party and so on. So what he was saying is that it is not as easy as we seem to think. That makes employers prefer. It's because even when South Africans come, they cannot cope with the conditions and they leave. That is something, and I said I want to bring him on board so that we can hear that. Go ahead, Jwarha.
And Gajeni, it means the government has to tighten the screws on this level, because as much as we want private business, government is creating an environment for private companies to create jobs. We welcome the investors in the country, but most of the times it is these big businesses from other countries that come here into the country and disregard your basic conditions of employment, your Labor Relations Act, your Employment Equity Act, your Skills Development Act, and the workers end up not having any rights. You are just taken, being transported, being put at the back of the truck, and it's raining. We don't regard you as an employee. You are just regarded as a resource to make business, for us to gain profits. We don't care about your welfare. And so it is where our country, our government, the Department of Labor inspectors have to go to all these areas to ensure that there is compliance with the South African legislation. When you then want to, because they are taking advantage of foreign nationals. Again, I live here in this neighborhood, as you would know. There are foreign nationals standing on the road every day looking for employment. And I see trucks and buggies getting there, taking them and going. In the afternoon, they are being dropped. It is those kind of practices that our employees, whether they are foreign or South African citizens, are being taken advantage of. That cannot be encouraged. It must be brought to an end.
Yes. So overall, on this issue of transformation, what is your overall sense? Are you happy? Are you feeling that we're making progress, but we're slow? But what is your overall sense of transformation? If you can just summarize it.
It's a combination of both, Kakeni. We are making progress. There are employers. I may sound as though I'm negative. There are employers who are doing a great deal of work where transformation is concerned. And those employers have to be applauded and have to be encouraged. And they are very committed. I mean, you would see in the report that 22nd annual report, They are
Yeah.
of all the sectors that are employers. And so we encourage those. However,
Yeah.
when we also look at the pace,
Mm.
especially in the private sector, the
Yeah.
pace of transformation is very slow in the private sector. And so the private sector has to come. Government is doing well. Provincial,
Yeah.
national, and local government is doing well.
Mm.
Where race is concerned, we
Mm.
need to also correct the issue of gender, even at
Okay.
government, both
Yeah.
national and provincial and local. And in
Mm.
fact, I would even challenge our national leaders in government. What are you doing about transformation in your departments, in your ministries?
Mm.
Most of
Mm.
them don't even have responsible officials for transformation in those ministries. And so while we are the ones responsible, but we disregard this issue of transformation. And so
Mm.
it is time that we put transformation back into the mainstream.
Mm.
Whatever strategic thinking that we do have, we cannot
Mm.
end the discussion, strategic discussion, without having
Yeah.
considered or even asked ourselves the question, where does
Mm.
transformation fit in this new strategic direction that we're going to be taking?
Yeah.
You look at your finances as a business. You've got your
Yeah.
CFO. It must be
Mm.
covered. There must be profit. But then
Mm.
when you look on the people side, you find that
Mm.
is lacking. One of the things that is lacking
Mm.
is transformation. And so our top managers must ask themselves a question, what are we doing about transformation? So that
Mm.
while we
Mm.
are making, it's a snail's pace, very slow
Yeah.
progress, but we
Yeah.
encourage those, but there is still a great room for improvement
Yeah.
where transformation is concerned. And it is said
Oh.
that 28 years after democracy, we still
Mm.
have the boys' choirs in the boardroom. We still have
Mm.
one race in the boardroom. And the dynamics, again, are different from Western Cape, Eastern Cape, Gauteng,
Mm.
KwaZulu-Natal. The dynamics are, you will discover in the Western Cape, the majority is
Mm.
white and colored. In the
Mm.
Eastern Cape, the majority is African. In KZN, the majority is Indian. And then when you
Mm.
get to Gauteng, there is a mix. Uh,
Mm.
but even in Gauteng, there are dynamics
Mm.
where there are ethnic issues that have to be addressed in Gauteng. We can't
Mm.
say things are done. You've got Xhosa, you've got Abesuthu, you've got Zulu, all these different race groups. But
Mm.
are we able to blend them together in the
Mm.
workspace
Mm.
so that there is no competition, there is no clash between Amaxhosa, Amazulu,
Mm.
Abetswana, so that we do not
Mm.
create homelands in the
Mm.
system of
Yeah.
employment.
Wow. 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 So this issue of transformation is really deep and multifaceted and wide. But let me just pass with this question to you that says, as a private business, the primary objective of this business is making money, bringing income for the
Correct.
shareholders, and then to pay people. So, how is transformation a strategic imperative for a business? Is it not an impediment where you're now having to look at all these other things? Well, yet you could just get anyone you want and you bring money in, you pay the tax.
Look again. As long as we that report actually this report, the 22nd annual report, it says
Yeah.
transformation as a business imperative. It means
Mm.
transformation is part of business.
Yeah. Mm.
Transformation is part of the strategic direction of every business. We are
Yeah.
serving diverse clients or customers, or we're serving
Yeah.
diverse citizens. So in your profit making, we are
Yeah.
getting profits from a diverse pool of
Mm.
customers, clients, and members of the public. And therefore, you are bound to ensure that your business reflects or represents the demographics of the people that you are serving. That's a business imperative. Secondly, transformation is a moral issue again. It is not a political matter, or it is not only it is a moral issue, because you cannot be disadvantaging or marginalizing someone in this day and age on their basis of their race and gender. And therefore, transformation is a moral issue. But if business wants to get any business, morally, what is your moral standing as a business? Do you allow space for transformation or not? Transformation also improves decision making for every business, because when you are sitting in the boardroom, you've got diversity, people coming from diverse backgrounds. They have various experiences. And so as a business, it is actually profitable to you as a business to ensure that you reflect all the cultures, the backgrounds, the languages, the races, the gender of the clients that you are serving and the population that you are serving. And so because of the diverse cultural perspectives, then that inspires creativity and innovation. That's the benefit to your business, because you've got that diversity. And therefore, you are going to benefit in the creativity and the innovation. And transformation leads to high performance of any organization, because people are treated with dignity. People are given the respect they deserve. People are given the rights that are due to them. And so there is less disciplinary issues because of the environment. And let me finish with this one, Kaken. There is social cohesion in a transformed organization. There is bonding and there is linking of different groups having a common purpose and the respect of interpersonal factors that are brought by each and every individual. So let us not look at transformation as an add-on and as a burden. Actually, transformation is a benefit to each and every to each and every business. And so it's a moral issue. It's a moral issue. For us to thrive as businesses, we have to ensure that we reflect the demographics of our clients, of our customers, and the citizens that we serve.
Wow. I know. We better start, Mhlobam. You've made it very, very clear. In fact, as you were talking, I was just thinking of this company, indonale company nansi baleka ngqondweni ithengisa ukuthi chicken, Nando's. You know, when
Nando's, yes.
when you listen to their adverts, you can sense that there's black creativity, because they speak the language of the majority of the people, and they are fast, or whatever agency that they're using. You sense that, so they benefit from that broad range of creativity that is out there, that speaks to the majority of South Africans. Now, as we're working towards the close, man, because of time, the world of work is changing. We are fast moving towards things like fourth industrial revolution, digitalization, and so many of the things that are now changing completely in the environment. And this impacts on the kind of skills and employment opportunities that people should bring. What do you think should our young people bring? Because when we grew up, as you said earlier on, we were limited in terms of the kinds of qualifications we should look into. How should our young people prepare themselves for this new world of work?
Yeah, look again, over and above the qualifications. There is also an element of skills. Okay, so we also need skills that are going to be relevant in the 21st century. Yes. We must not all be teachers. We must not all be employed. So we must get professions that are going to. Our education must not. We must not be educated to be employees. We must be educated to create spaces and opportunities for employment. And so our education has to speak to that. Young people in this age, you don't always have to think about being employed. Create an employment as a black child. You've got opportunity these days to start your own companies. You've got black, African, Indian CEOs. So move away from only being employees. Think of being a creator of employment opportunities. Yes. And in this 21st century, you also need to have your change management skills. That is very important in the workplace. You need to have your people management skills. You need to have your analytical skills. You can mention a list of all the skills. You need to have the resilient skills, interpersonal skills, your problem-solving skills, your strategic thinking skills. You're talking of the fourth industrial revolution. We are being digital. So we've got to hone our digital skills. Those of us who were born before computers, and I'm telling you, soon we're going to have a serious challenge, because when I saw a computer for the first time, I thought it was a TV in the office, because we were never exposed to these digital and technology skills. So it's very critical in the 21st century to have these technology skills, communication skills. In social network, they talk of influencers. You need to have those influencing skills as well. And as I conclude, you also need to have the creativity, the creative thinking skills, or the innovative skills. You can't be doing the same thing the way it was done by my mother, my grandfather 20, 30, 40 years ago. As the employee, think of different ways of rendering the same service, but in a manner that is going to be relevant to the state that we live in. Businesses have to be creative. At the end, what we want to see transformation doing, we want to see transformation being linked directly to service delivery. As government, we can't speak of transformation and not talk about improved service delivery. So if we then transform the workplace, it then means the citizens that we are rendering a service to are also going to be transformed because of the professional services they are receiving from us. And so those are the skills that are wanted, are very critical in this day and age. Not only formal education, but you must have those soft skills, people management, strategic thinking, interpersonal, influencing skills that we need. And as I conclude, Gajen, we are moving towards workplaces being in our homes. We're moving away, the future of work. We are moving away from seeing your subordinates. You see, ube ngumlungu othile apha kule farm yakho kule office. Bonke ufuna ubabona bonke belapha. That we are moving away from that. You are going to have subordinates that you are not going to see for almost a week, if not a month. You only meet through Skype, you meet with Teams, and you discuss. And therefore, it means in the 21st century, our managers must not think about paying employees for the time that they are investing in the workplace. We must pay employees for the product that they are presenting, for the performance. This thing of clocking in. We're clocking in, that's good. We're clocking in when you come in. We clock out when you leave. And 8 hours, we do nothing. We are being paid for being in the office. Even if we did not do anything, we are paid at the end of the month. The time that we live in says you must be paid and be measured on the performance. And so you are going to be my superior again, but you're not going to see me as long as I deliver the targets of the week. You give me the targets for the day, targets for the week, targets for the month, targets for the quarter, targets for the year. That's what we need in this 21st century. Even if you don't see me, but as long as you see that I am delivering, I am performing, I am meeting your targets. That's the skill that we need in this 21st century.
Wow. Mazalen, I think we can you I think you've done justice to this topic today. And then you've given a challenge to employers out there, also to government, to make sure that transformation is a strategic business imperative. And there needs to be this self-compliance rather than waiting for the stick from the government to pounce on you.
Correct.
But you are also saying even the government must also do its task. And as we're now concluding, you're giving a challenge to both the employee and the employer to understand the time in which we are now working. And so I think it is a good time for us to just at this point, because I think you've given us a very powerful background from a constitutional point of view, the evolution of our country, the legislation, the implementation. And I want to appreciate you for coming out here on this Sunday. I don't know if you've got maybe a last word before we say goodbye to our viewers.
Kageni, thank you so much. We are so humbled to have been invited to your platform. We don't take that for granted. I have devoted my life and my career, my profession to seeing the equality of blacks, women, and people with disabilities, to preserve a South Africa worth living for, both for blacks and for whites. That's what this is my mantra. This is my principle. When I wake up in the morning, I want to create a South Africa that is seeing equal opportunities for blacks, for women. I stand for women equality. In M17, in my friends will tell you, in the church, I stand for equality of women. And so as I conclude, Steve Biko died saying, in time we shall be in a position to bestow on South Africa the greatest possible gift, a more human face. And I'm saying, through transformation, we would like to bestow upon South Africa, upon Africa and the world, a more, the greatest gift possible, that of a more human face. We want to see people who want to move beyond this issue of race and gender and be regarded as people. Until then, we're going to be talking about race, gender, and disability, because it is race, it was through race that we are marginalized. It is through the same race that we have to set our people free mentally, in terms of the environment, as well as in terms of the economy. Black people, women, people with disabilities are not economically free 28 years after democracy. And so every day I wake up, I strive to create that space for blacks, for women, and for people with disabilities. And thank you so much to you once again for providing us that space. Thank you, and God bless you guys.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I think also, if someone was to come and listen to what you're saying, you did provide a broad definition of blacks, that it is not just Africans, but it also includes coloreds and Indians. So they all form part of that. So with that, I want to say thank you so much, Mazaleni. Thank you so for gracing us with your presence and with your expertise. I think now people can come here 10 years from now and watch this and learn from this thing, because this platform is about providing insight, learning, information, transformation to ensure that we become better people. So I want to say thank you so much for your contribution to that, and may God bless you. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. Same to you again and the family. God bless you.
Thank you, man. I want to thank you to say thank you to also those people that have joined us and taken time to become part of this thing, and also those that will be joining. We'll be back again, and I'd like to encourage you to please subscribe, get your friends and family to subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much. All the very best. Take good care. Bye-bye. and my children for their
Chapter 5 in the book, page 121. Mr. Kulati, you have cancer. It was in November 2011 where we had our dark cloud when the doctor announced in our family. But what's so amazing is that through all the journey, God saw that I was not ready for whatever outcomes I was expecting because of his illness.
I feel like you can't prepare for sentimental things. While he was writing this book and before, there's a lot of things I've learned from Utata and Umama, which have channeled a road for me and channeled the way of me becoming a man. Because I look up to them and they have taught me so many lessons in my life, and now this book is motivating me to do more in my life. We're also part of this book, we're in this book, we're part of you forever. We can't change that, and yes, we love you, Dad.
And he told me every time he'd listen to that song, You'll Never Walk Alone, he felt peace and understanding, and it would calm him down, and he'd feel hope that he would win this battle of cancer. So as he was telling me this story, I don't know how, but it really touched my heart because I love the song and I felt like maybe Lengomale, it made him heal. So I started to cry. And we were sitting in the car. I remember he was sitting in the driver's and I was sitting in the learner's seat. And he noticed that I was crying, so then he hugged me and we cried together. I don't know if kumbula, but yes, that happened. So we cried together, and ever since that day, I've never forgotten that day. It always stays into my heart, thinking that I have that kind of relationship with my dad to sit down and cry with him.
Here, I want to thank my wife and my children for their kind words. Nauli Kwezi told me something. He phoned me on the day it was my birthday. That's my son's name, Likwezi. And he says, Dada, I'm training myself to tell my family how I feel. And he said something great, which really meant a lot to me, boy. He said, I'm proud of you of being my father. And for me, that is the best accolade that one could get. And so this book has 3 eyes in it, 3 elements. 1 is to inspire. 2, it is to influence. 3, it is to identify. Identify with 3 groups of people. Those people who are already in crises, whether professional or personal. It is also to identify with a group of people who have already made it through their crisis. The book celebrates with them. It is also, there's a 3rd group, those who look like you, who have not yet met any trouble, who are just whizzing through life. And I'm here on the side saying something can happen at any moment. And so the book tries to help you to prepare for an unexpected. All right. Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. I will also enjoy mine. Bye-bye. See you again next time. Cheers.